chapter 58. Your church pronounces, and the word turned into the flesh. Did it really? When I was in the human flesh, the situation of your world was totally different. People, apart from animals, had no machinery, did not know any conveniences, did not see any pictures from other countries or even planets. Now the level of your knowledge of the universe has enormously broadened. Your mind is not scared anymore by such things as images of a locomotive in a movie or even atrocities you watch on television that are being constantly pressed on you by absolutely unspiritual and only profit-seeking television and newspaper companies. At that time, people lived under the stress of a permanent fear. They were afraid of losing their lives due to the assaults of robbers that were common. People scared of the punishment of God. They feared to disobey the rabbis. They were afraid of suffering in hell. Since that time, humanity outwardly has changed beyond recognition. But the inner changes of man have not experienced such progress. On the contrary, the inner self has become even more miserable, and it has become even lower, so that today you have stopped discussing God the way people would do during those times. And they held sincere discussions and put questions to wiser men, even after the prayer service in the synagogue. Discussions also served as a means of intercommunication. Nowadays, you do not talk about God at all, either at home, at school, or at work. Therefore, your inner self has become mouldy, and it has drowned in the quagmire, in the bog of only things material, where you have not preserved any room for the spiritual refreshment of one's soul. The soul is suffering and it is upset, yet all the same you steadfastly continue teaching your children to strive for material wealth and position only, so that their life would be comfortable for their body. You have completely abandoned the spiritual business of the soul. And it is the church that has abandoned it in particular, even though it has been claiming to itself, as well as to you, that it is about the business of your soul. In church, from time to time, you do hear priests say during their sermons, and the word has turned into the flesh. That is why there is no vitality in your churches. That is why your young people do not attend them. That is why the churches are gradually getting deserted. That is why new sects are being set up, because the church pronouncing and the word has turned into the flesh, and having pronounced this does not turn into the flesh itself. It must turn into a living flesh. It must stop abiding by any dead rituals and dogmatic assertions. It must give freedom to those priests who are opened up to both me and the Father with all their soul, to lead a prayer service without following the rituals, but rather to lead the prayer the way they are being led by the Father Spirit from within. It must allow their souls to bloom out in a free spiritual glide, so that the souls of the believers who have come to the church would also feel these live spiritual vibrations that are being radiated by the soul of the priest already experiencing this free flight. It is then that a life relationship shall be established between the Father and the priest, between the believers, each of them separately, and the Father, and between the priest and the believers, as well as the interrelationship among all the believers. And this relationship is live and experienceable. And then the opened up souls of the believers shall start experiencing within themselves such sensations of bliss that they shall desire to take off and fly, sharing this love they will experience within at this moment. They will desire to fly, to share their Father's love, since at this time they will experience a pressure of the Father's love within themselves, and such a strong pressure that it will become unbearably hard to withstand it without sharing this very love of the Father with others. And it is only in this way that the soul itself can equalize the pressure of this real love of the Father by sharing it with all and each without any calculation. It is then that the Word turns into the flesh. It is then that the dead rituals abandon the walls of the church and they are filled with the vibrations of the Father's love that are experienced by every open soul. It is then that the prayer books are given away to the museums as a historic heritage to get acquainted with for the generations to come. And the vaults of the church are filled with the living prayer of the priest. And it is pouring out from the very depths of his soul. And it is not required to remember the words of this prayer, for each time the soul supplies such words which match the spiritual vibrations of his opened up soul, and which are also recognized by the opened up souls of the believers present in the church. They are being recognized because all these vibrations are out of the love vibrations of the Father, and they can also be recognized only by the soul opened up to the Father, and no ritual shall help there. The only ritual here is a live communion with the Father.